It was a stormy night in a small town in Ohio. The regional hospital of Willow Creek was running with a minimal overnight staff in the cardiac wing. 40 patients, mostly elderly, lay resting after delicate heart surgeries, many of them attached to ventilators and monitors. The entire town was struggling with power outages due to a relentless winter storm. No one in that quiet hospital could imagine how this ordinary night would turn into a fight for life and truth. Among the staff on duty was Emily Carter, a quiet, composed nurse in her early 40s. She had worked at Willow Creek for over a decade, always preferring the night shift. Emily didn't talk much, but she was known for never losing her cool. Some of the younger nurses jokingly called her Ice Queen, not out of cruelty, but because she stayed calm even when everything around her collapsed. She never raised her voice. She never panicked. But she had her reasons. Emily said she liked the night shift because the hospital had a different heartbeat after dark. That night, though, something felt different. The wind howled against the windows. Lightning lit up the sky. At exactly 2:45 a.m., the lights went out. No panic. The hospital's generator kicked in like always. Monitors blinked back on. Staff exchanged tired glances. Another winter outage. Nothing unusual, for now. But 2 minutes later, everything went silent. The backup generator failed. Total darkness fell over the cardiac wing. No sounds, no beeping monitors, no humming ventilators. Only the dim red emergency lights lit the hallway. In that moment, 40 vulnerable lives were hanging by a thread. 23 patients depended on ventilation. 12 had unstable heart rhythms. 5 were on life support, and there was no power, no backup. Just cold silence. Panic erupted. 2 nurses began shouting. One ran to find her cell phone signal. Another started crying. The landlines were dead. Emergency services wouldn't get there fast in this weather. Emily didn't move. She stood still in the hallway, closed her eyes for a second, took a deep breath, and something inside her switched on. The quiet night nurse was gone. What emerged was someone the others had never seen before, someone who had trained for far worse. In a low but commanding voice, she took control. "Jessica, get the manual resuscitators now. Rachel, triage the patients by priority. Michael, bring the portable defibrillator." No one questioned her. Her tone left no room for doubt. She moved like a leader in the middle of battle, because in truth, that's exactly who she had been. Before she was Nurse Carter, she was Sergeant Carter, U.S. Army combat medic, but no one at the hospital knew that. Emily organized the chaos with military precision. She quickly assessed each room. Those in critical need were red-tagged in her mind, immediate manual ventilation. Yellow, closely monitored. Black, no viable survival under these conditions. A brutal but necessary logic. She had used it in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now, in a hospital wing in Ohio, it was the only way to save the most lives in the shortest amount of time. She started giving emergency injections to those with cardiac instability. Jessica pumped ventilation bags at a steady rhythm. Rachel cleared airways using portable suction. Emily moved from room to room, administering life-saving actions with swift, practiced hands. In 4 minutes, she had stabilized multiple patients. At minute 5, 2 more began crashing. Then came the decision she had always dreaded, the one she thought she'd left on the battlefield. 2 patients, 1 manual ventilator, a 78-year-old man with multiple conditions, and a 34-year-old father of 2. No time to hesitate. Emily looked between them. Her hands trembled, but her face stayed calm. She had been here before, on dirt floors under gunfire, choosing who had a fighting chance and who didn't. She made the same choice she had made then. She gave the bag to the younger man and kept moving. Time blurred. At minute 7, the hospital's power roared back. Monitors lit up, ventilators restarted, life returned. But Emily didn't stop. She checked each machine, each dosage, each patient's vitals. Only once every life was accounted for did she allow herself to breathe. 39 patients alive, one lost. The man she had chosen not to save. And now everyone was staring at her, not with judgment, but with awe. The quiet nurse had become something else. The moment Emily Carter chose to save the younger man, she knew her heart would carry the weight forever. It was a decision few could understand, but one she had made before. In war, such choices were called triage. In a hospital, they felt like betrayal. But even so, there was no time to stop. Dozens of patients still needed her. She kept moving through the corridor, her breath steady, hands shaking just slightly, but her voice unwavering. Jessica, still pumping ventilation manually, looked at her in disbelief. "Emily, how do you know how to do all this?" Emily glanced over briefly and replied, "Because I've done it before, in places where chaos was the norm." There was no time to explain. Every second mattered. She moved with the instinct of someone who had trained for pressure, someone who had faced real-time disaster and learned never to blink. That night, she blinked only once. By minute 7, Emily and Michael had brought 3 more patients back from the brink. The portable defibrillator worked on its last charge. The nurses rotated shifts on the manual bags. Rachel distributed meds from the emergency kit. There was no screaming now. The panic had turned to action. Everyone followed her lead, even though they didn't understand where her calm came from. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Lives were being saved. When the power returned, everyone exhaled at once. Monitors blinked to life. The soft rhythm of machines filled the space. A few patients began to stir, unaware of how close they had come to dying. But Emily didn't stop. She double-checked every dosage, every pulse, every airway. It was the discipline of someone who didn't wait for backup, someone who had been trained to expect none. After a final scan of the room, she stepped back. 39 patients still breathing. Silence filled the corridor. Her colleagues looked at her differently now, less like a co-worker and more like someone they couldn't quite figure out. Rachel stepped forward, hesitant. "You were military, weren't you?" Emily took a slow breath. She had avoided this conversation for over a decade, but there was no reason to lie anymore. "Yes," she said. "I served in combat zones. I was a medic." And with that, the quiet woman they thought they knew became someone else entirely. Later that morning, Dr. William Harris, the hospital director, arrived for rounds. The staff quickly filled him in. He listened carefully, then requested to speak with Emily in his office. "I've heard the reports," he began. "How exactly did you manage to keep 39 critical patients alive in complete darkness?" Emily responded calmly. "Battlefield protocols, triage, rapid assessment, emergency resource allocation." His eyebrows lifted. "Where did you learn that?" She reached into her pocket. She pulled out an old, worn ID, her military identification. Sergeant Emily Carter, U.S. Army medic, 5 deployments. Dr. Harris studied the photo in silence. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" She replied, "Because I didn't think it was relevant, and most people don't understand." He nodded slowly. "They'll understand now." For the first time in years, Emily felt seen, not just as a nurse, but as someone who had walked through fire and made it out alive. In the following days, the hospital was buzzing. Patients' families left flowers and thank you notes. Colleagues approached her with respect and sometimes a bit of nervousness. But something unexpected happened. Dr. Harris offered her a new role, Emergency Response Coordinator, a position that hadn't existed before. "We need someone who knows how to lead when the system fails," he said. "We need you." Emily hesitated. It would mean stepping into the spotlight, something she had never wanted. She talked it over with her daughter, Grace, a 19-year-old nursing student. "Mom," Grace said, holding her phone, "you're on the hospital website. They're calling you a hero." Emily smiled. "I just did what I had to do." But Grace shook her head. No, Mom. You did what heroes do. You acted when everyone else froze. You made the hard calls. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Her daughter had always known the outline of her past, but not the weight of it. That night, Emily looked in the mirror and saw something different. Not just a nurse, not just a former soldier, but someone who had, at last, brought both parts of herself together. She wasn't hiding anymore. And maybe, just maybe, the past she had spent so long burying had returned to serve a new purpose. Not for war, but for healing. And this time, not just in emergencies, but by helping others be ready when it was their turn to lead in the dark. In the week following the blackout, Emily Carter wasn't just the night nurse anymore. Around the hospital, she became known simply as Sergeant. The nickname started as a whisper, but quickly turned into something more, respectful, admiring. The younger nurses followed her instructions like students to a teacher. Doctors sought her out for insight. But not everyone welcomed her rising presence. And tension, like an infection, began to spread quietly. Chief Nurse Beverly Daniels, who had led the department for years, wasn't pleased. She made her opinion known behind closed doors. Hospitals aren't battlefields. Nurses don't give orders. She resented that Emily had stepped up when others froze. Some supported her in silence. Others began to question the authority Emily had shown that night. What if something had gone wrong? What if she had made the wrong call? Gratitude started fading. Bureaucracy was taking its place. Things escalated when the family of the man who died, Mr. Frank Ellis, 78, with severe heart disease, came in for answers. They were grieving and confused. Why him? One of the sons asked. Why wasn't he given a chance? Dr. Harris tried to explain. The situation was extreme. Resources were limited, and Emily's decisions saved dozens. But they insisted on hearing it from her directly. The woman who had made the choice, no one else could. Emily agreed to speak with them privately. She sat across from Frank's children, her expression calm but solemn. That night, we had 8 minutes, 40 patients, no power, not enough hands, not enough tools. I triaged like I was trained to. I chose who had the best chance of survival. Your father. He didn't. One of the sons clenched his jaw. The daughter wiped her eyes. But then the eldest said quietly, Dad always said, if he had to go, he'd want someone else to live in his place. Emily said nothing. She just nodded, heart aching. The story began to spread beyond the hospital. Local reporters caught wind of what had happened. A news crew showed up in the lobby, asking to speak with the war nurse who saved 39 lives. Emily refused. This isn't about me, she said. But her name was already circulating. She received dozens of letters. Veterans thanked her. Patients' families called her an angel. For Emily, every word of praise felt like another reminder of the man she couldn't save. Meanwhile, Dr. Harris awaited her decision on the coordinator role. But Emily wasn't ready. She noticed that, despite all the attention, the hospital hadn't made real changes. The emergency protocols were still outdated. The backup generator system hadn't been replaced. A title is meaningless if the system stays broken, she told him. He agreed. Then change it, he said. Build it the way it should be. He gave her full authority to redesign the response structure from the ground up, but the resistance didn't go away. Beverly began whispering to others that Emily had gone rogue. She broke procedure, she said. She put the hospital at risk. There was even talk of a formal review. Emily tried to stay above it, but the memories returned. The missions, the trauma, the faces of soldiers she'd lost in her arms. Now, even here, in this peaceful town, she was back under fire, this time from within her own team. One morning, she arrived to find her locker broken into. Some documents were missing. On top of her folded scrubs, someone had left a note. Just 5 words, scribbled in ink. You don't belong here. Emily sat down slowly. The same old heaviness returned to her chest. She had faced mortar shells, ambushes, mass casualties. But this quiet betrayal? It cut deeper. For the first time since that night, she wondered if she should walk away. That evening, her daughter Grace appeared at the hospital with an envelope. "You got a letter," she said. It was from the University of Michigan's School of Nursing. They wanted Emily to speak at an upcoming symposium about emergency response. "They say what you did should be taught nationwide." Emily held the letter for a long moment. "Why me?" she whispered. Grace looked at her, eyes full of conviction. "Because you saved people when no one else knew how, and you can teach them to do the same." That night, Emily walked alone through the cardiac wing. The machines hummed quietly. The patients slept. Nurses moved calmly from room to room. She passed Jessica in the hallway, performing chest compressions during a training drill, something Emily had taught her. She paused and watched for a moment, and it hit her. She wasn't alone anymore. Her experience had sparked something in others, and for the first time, she realized maybe this was her mission now, not to carry the weight alone, but to prepare others to carry it too. The following Monday, Emily Carter walked into Willow Creek Hospital with purpose. She wasn't carrying a resignation letter. She carried a binder. Inside were newly written protocols, emergency drills, and floor-by-floor evacuation strategies. She stepped into Dr. Harris's office, met his eyes, and said, "I'll take the position, on one condition. I want full authority to train everyone here, from security guards to surgeons." He didn't hesitate. "It's yours." Within weeks, change rippled through the hospital. Emily restructured the emergency response from the ground up. She organized overnight drills, hands-on training, and role-play scenarios. She brought principles of combat medicine into the civilian world, adapted, compassionate, and practical. At first, staff were skeptical, but one by one, as they practiced what she taught, the doubt turned to trust. Because Emily didn't speak from books, she spoke from battlefields. The night shift transformed. No longer quiet and reactive, it became alert and ready. Nurses rehearsed resuscitations. Technicians learned how to prioritize care during outages. Even veteran physicians attended sessions, asking Emily how to act when seconds mattered more than titles. She never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence alone reminded them that leadership wasn't always about authority. Sometimes it was about being prepared to do what others couldn't. One morning, a plaque was installed in the cardiac wing. It was simple, brushed steel with black letters. February 13th, 2024, 39 lives saved. In honor of the silent heroes, no names, no spotlight, just truth. When Emily passed by it the first time, she stopped, placed her hand gently on the cold metal, and whispered, "For the one we couldn't save." It was never about glory for her. It was about duty, about honoring those moments when every second matters and someone stands up to carry the weight. At home, her daughter Grace watched as her mother changed, not into someone new, but into someone whole. For years, Emily had tried to keep her military past hidden, as if it belonged to someone else. Now, it lived beside her nursing career, not as a shadow, but as a light. "Mom," Grace said one evening, "you didn't just save lives. You gave people a new way to think, a new way to act." Emily smiled. "I just did what I was trained to do." Grace replied, "Exactly, and now you're training others." The recognition came quickly. A hospital in Chicago reached out, offering her a senior role in disaster response. Another in Boston asked her to lead a statewide emergency preparedness program. The offers were tempting, bigger salaries, bigger titles. But Emily turned them all down. "This is where I was needed when it mattered most," she said, "and this is where I stay." Willow Creek had become more than a workplace. It had become her mission field. Over the following months, Emily was called into action 3 more times: a train derailment, a gas explosion at a retirement home, and a mass food poisoning incident at a local school. In each case, she brought calm, structure, and rapid leadership. She didn't command with ego. She acted with clarity. And every time, more people lived because she knew how to turn panic into order. At home, she finally slept without dreams of gunfire and chaos. Not because she forgot, but because she had given the pain a purpose. Her memories became tools. Her experiences became lessons. And the weight she once carried alone was now shared across an entire hospital. She didn't need to tell war stories. All she had to do was teach people how to act when the world suddenly goes quiet. In the hospital halls, she became a quiet legend. New staff were told, "If you don't know what to do, ask Emily." And whenever they did, she'd smile softly and say, "You already know. You just have to trust it." That was her greatest gift. Not just saving lives, but helping others believe they could too. Emily Carter was no longer just the night nurse. She was the one who made sure everyone else was ready when the lights went out. So, the next time you meet someone quiet, someone who never brags or boasts, take a closer look. Maybe they've carried a stretcher through a battlefield. Maybe they've made the impossible choice between two lives. Maybe they've saved people without ever asking for credit. Because real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear scrubs and a badge. Sometimes they walk past you silently until the world needs them. And when it does, they're already there.